The latest on Bray Wyatt still not being cleared for a WWE in-ring return. How far away is the former Universal Champion from returning to WWE television? SmackDown does huge ratings on Fox last Friday for the Tribal Court episode featuring Roman Reigns and Jey Uso, with the episode being dominated by the Bloodline, proving big dividends for WWE. Kevin Nash continues to slam LA Knight, saying when he first saw him on television, he thought it was a rib. Johnny Gargano, an update on his return from injury. Cody Rhodes has officially challenged Brock Lesnar to a match at SummerSlam last night on Monday Night Raw. The teases of the Judgment Day splitting continued last night on Raw. Speaking of splitting up, Giovanni Vinci could be set to leave Imperium after a tease last night. Becky Lynch competes on Raw despite the fact that reports had indicated she was too injured to compete on the show. The Miz gets his first win of 2023. Logan Paul goes face-to-face with Ricochet, and Brock Lesnar is set to return on Raw next week. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of World Wrestling Entertainment. Let's start talking about Bray Wyatt and the latest when it comes to Wyatt's illness, his timetable for a return to WWE television, and a timetable for a return to in-ring competition. And as of right now, things are still very vague when it comes to the former WWE champion. According to Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, Bray Wyatt still isn't set for a WWE return. Wyatt has been sidelined since late February, as he is out of action with an illness that prevented him from getting cleared for in-ring action. When Fightful Select inquired about Wyatt's status, a WWE higher-up confirmed to Fightful that Wyatt was indeed still sidelined and still not cleared for action. Now, Fightful have been told that he's still awaiting clearance and is hopeful for a return whenever that does occur. Wyatt was involved in a feud with Bobby Lashley, and they were planned for a WrestleMania match earlier this year. Also scheduled to be involved with Wyatt in some capacity were Bo Dallas / Uncle Howdy, who has been off television since Wyatt's illness, as well as Alexa Bliss, who is out for all of 2023 on maternity leave. In the months that have followed, we haven't really heard of any significant creative plans due to the unpredictable nature of Wyatt getting cleared. So the latest update when it comes to Bray Wyatt is there's no real update on his recovery timeline or if or when he's going to return. There is hope that he will get cleared and he will come back soon, but as of right now, Bray Wyatt is still not cleared. Let me know your thoughts about Wyatt's recovery from this illness, as well as how would you rate Wyatt's return to WWE so far, and what do you think his future looks like in WWE? Let me know your thoughts, as always, in the comment section below. Now, the Bloodline is continuing to do huge numbers for WWE, particularly on SmackDown, and last Friday was no different, but this time as well, they're starting to do numbers on the Blue brand that they were doing when it actually debuted on Fox back in 2019. This is incredible stuff. Now, SmackDown last Friday averaged 2.561 million viewers on the Fox broadcast network in the United States, which is up from the 2.510 million number the prior week. It's the second highest viewership of the year, only behind the 2.563 million it drew on June 2nd. That was for the Roman Reigns 1000-day championship celebration. Of course, the episode was built around the trial of the Tribal Chief segment in Tribal Court, with undisputed WWE Universal Champion Roman Reigns, Paul Heyman, Solo Sikoa, and the Usos. That opening segment lasted 35 minutes, going over several quarters, and according to WrestleNomics, the first quarter drew just over 2.5 million viewers, but this is where really the numbers started to surge, because the second quarter drew a show peak average of just over 3 million viewers. Yes, 3 million viewers tuning in for the trial of the Tribal Chief, and then it settled into a steady range of 2.366 to 2.474 million for the final 5 quarter hours. In the key 18 to 49 demographic, SmackDown drew a 0.76 rating, which is up significantly from last week's 0.69 rating. In fact, it's the highest 18 to 49 demographic rating of this year, of 2023, and also of last year, 2022. It even beats some of the earliest demographic ratings for SmackDown on Fox, going all the way back to late 2019 when they debuted almost 4 years ago. After the 1.38 demo rating for the Fox premiere on October 4th, 2019, it dropped to 0.96 the next week, and for the rest of 2019, the Fox episodes of SmackDown averaged 0.6 9.72 ratings. So this week's demo rating was actually higher than the 10-week average to close out 2019 when SmackDown first went on Fox prior to the pandemic too. In the first 10 weeks of 2020, pre-pandemic, it averaged a 0.74 demo rating and 2.498 million viewers. So SmackDown on Friday is beating some of the earliest and highest ratings and viewership averages in SmackDown on Fox history. So what do you think of those numbers? What do you think WWE is going to do based on those numbers? And is this just more evidence that the Bloodline, that's what's working in WWE right now, and they're going to continue to do it? And can anyone match up to these kind of numbers in 2023 on WWE programming? Absolutely incredible stuff. Let me know your thoughts about that in the comment section below. Absolutely incredible numbers. Now, last week, Kevin Nash made quite a few headlines, didn't he? Talking about LA Knight, yeah, and saying that he felt he was a parody and a ripoff of The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin. On a recent episode of Click This, Kevin Nash doubled down on his earlier criticism of LA Knight, this time going as far to insinuate that Knight had lucked into getting over with the WWE Universe. Quote, "There's so many people who agree that LA is doing the Rock Austin," Nash began. "I mean, the guy's been in the business for like 10 years. Why didn't he get over anywhere else? If you're not over in 3 years, it's probably just not going to happen." Nash cited the example of many wrestlers who remained in NXT for 4 or 5 years, but never made the jump to the main roster, adding that it would not make business sense for WWE to invest in guys like Knight, who couldn't break into the limelight until their late 30s. "I'm just not going to take all of the assets that I've gathered in the last 30 years, go to the roulette wheel and put double green 0 and give it a spin." Nash, who received backlash for calling Knight a cheat imitation of The Rock and Steve Austin, clarified that he had not watched Knight on WWE TV until the Raw before Money in the Bank, and upon watching the segment felt the character was meant to be a rib. Quote, "I was like, okay, this is a rib, right?" Nash recalled his reaction to watching Knight, and then it's not. It's just what the character is. "So I get hot and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me, right? But they said I buried the guy. I didn't say he couldn't work. I've never seen him in the ring. I just said the character wasn't very original." Nash reiterated that he'd never watched Knight wrestle, and if Knight was truly one of the boys in the WWE locker room, one of his fellow wrestlers would have stood up for him. "I'm not going to apologize," Nash concluded. "I think it's a blatant ripoff, but I didn't mean any harm." Now, Jeff Jarrett, he's also weighed in on the My World podcast and kind of address what Nash said as well as the general criticism. Jeff Jarrett said, "When did he start, Conrad? Because I think that goes into, he's not a young guy," Jarrett said, "because when he worked for us during this era, okay, 6 years ago, he's 35, and they told me, yeah, he actually was in the WWE developmental and it didn't work out." And I'm like, wow, that's interesting. Where did I miss, you know, this guy? Knight performed as Eli Drake in Impact Wrestling between 2015 and 2019, but he and Jarrett didn't see too much of each other. "He's been around," Jarrett added, "and by osmosis and trial and error, and sometimes the almighty word timing, it doesn't work out. At some point, wrestlers ask themselves how they're going to get over. It could mean an entire repackaging, maybe they'll borrow from past greats." Knight, who was almost lost to obscurity due to the short-lived Max Dupree character, went back to what made him popular. Jarrett knows plenty of wrestlers who have borrowed from the past and been successful. Quote, "To your point, absolutely everything is inspired in a certain way," he continued. "The folks can take a little inspiration here and a little inspiration there and mash it up and make it authentic to themselves. Well then, they're not just uber successful, but innovators, if you will." So you've got a bit of both there from Jeff Jarrett and Kevin Nash. But what are your thoughts on Kevin Nash's comments in particular, particularly doubling down, saying when the first time he actually watched LA Knight on television, he thought it was a rib because to him, it's a clear parody? I know you'll let me know your opinions in the comment section below about that. Let's talk about Johnny Gargano. We spoke earlier on about Bray Wyatt returning from injury and a bit of an update when it comes to the former NXT champion too. Johnny Gargano hasn't been seen on television for quite a while, leading many fans to speculate on his status. Well, Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select inquired about this and was given an answer. On Monday, there was reporting noting that Johnny Gargano was still injured and wouldn't be competing at this year's SummerSlam event. While Fightful can't confirm his status for SummerSlam or the status of the originally planned DIY angle, they can confirm that Gargano is no longer injured and was factored into recent creative plans in WWE. Gargano was backstage at the recent Monday Night Raw in Cleveland in his hometown, and he actually was originally scheduled to be on the show. However, creative plans were adjusted and he wasn't used. Gargano had experienced a reoccurring shoulder injury, but has been fine for quite some time, so essentially he's ready to go, but creative plans right now have changed, or at least been halted, so we'll have to wait and see what happens with the former NXT champion moving forward. Now, speaking of Raw last night, the American Nightmare has officially challenged the Beast to a third match in their trilogy. If you believe Cody Rhodes, everyone has their own metaphorical Brock Lesnar. The American Nightmare, however, is hoping to deal with the real thing at SummerSlam next month. After making his entrance Monday night on Raw, Rhodes waxed poetic about his relationship with the crowd, both in attendance and at home, declaring that to him, that relationship is never performative. Then he switched his focus to momentum, saying that everywhere he goes, he is cheered, everywhere he goes, the crowd seems to get louder and louder. Everywhere he goes, he wins, and yet he cannot shake the Beast incarnate. So while Rhodes believes everyone has their own personal Lesnar, it's just not all that common that they come in the form of a 6'3", 280-pound monster. He hopes to vanquish the Beast once and for all, declaring, "What I dream is a rubber match with Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam," and he's set to lay it all on the line, adding, "I'm gonna finish the chapter that you started for no damn reason." So, Cody's laid out the challenge. The question is, will Brock Lesnar accept? We've got a bit of an update about Brock Lesnar later on in the show. Now, Raw last night also saw the continued teases of dissension within one of the biggest factions in WWE right now, the Judgment Day. In a big main event on last night's edition of Raw, there was continued anguish within the Judgment Day as they took on a super group of champions. The Raw main event saw WWE World Heavyweight Champion Seth Rollins teaming with Undisputed Tag Team Champions Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens facing the Judgment Day. With Rhea Ripley at ringside, Mammy factored into the match in the end, as usual, when she grasped the leg of Zayn and he was teeing up for a haluva kick. This allowed Damian Priest to hit a big South of Heaven and then Finn Balor with the coup de grace ahead of the pinfall victory on Zayn, with Priest and Balor working together despite the recent tensions between them in the past. Quote, "Any question of unity, you can squash that right now. An emphatically team performance by the Judgment Day," said Kevin Patrick on commentary in the ring. Finn Balor and Damian Priest hugged in celebration. With Rhea Ripley and Dirty Dom joining in for the celebration in the ring, the Judgment Day looked strong and unified once again, heading into their invasion of NXT tonight on the USA Network. Of course, the question is this just the calm before the storm, and could we see a Judgment Day split in the near future? Speaking of factions splitting up, Imperium might also be losing a member very soon. Imperium may be a strong three-man faction, but could they soon go back to just being a duo act? While the through story of the night included the continuing tensions within the Judgment Day, another faction in Imperium also seems to be beginning to be at odds. After Giovanni Vinci and Ludwig Kaiser of Imperium lost to Drew McIntyre and Matt Riddle, we'll talk about that in just a second, the group's leader, their Ring General Gunther, was less than impressed. Pausing at the entrance ramp to shout down the tag team after their loss, Gunther marched away in anger. Next, there was an exchange of glances between Ludwig Kaiser and Giovanni Vinci, by which Vinci appeared apologetic for having taken the pin during the loss. Kaiser then glared at him in disgust before marching away, leaving Vinci standing alone. Of course, back in April of 2022, when they were first called up to the main roster from NXT, Gunther and Kaiser were a duo, with Vinci staying in NXT and being repackaged as an Italian playboy and motto solo act. After Triple H took over creative, Vinci was called up to the main roster and rejoined Imperium at Clash of the Castle in September of 2022. Shortly thereafter in the show, while Logan Paul was shown walking through the backstage area for his face-to-face with Ricochet, Imperium was shown in deep discussion in the background of the scene. Of course, Gunther, defending the Intercontinental Championship against Drew McIntyre, reportedly is the plan for SummerSlam on August 5th. So do you think Imperium could be splitting up, and is that going to be a problem? Now, speaking of Drew McIntyre as well, he made his big in-ring return on Raw last night for the first time since WrestleMania 39 in April. He made a big return to action, featuring in a tag team match on the show, where Matt Riddle and McIntyre took on Ludwig Kaiser and Giovanni Vinci, winning the match whilst Intercontinental Champion Gunther stood at ringside to observe. As I mentioned, it featured teases of Imperium splitting up, but also it furthered along this storyline that seemingly is going to end with Gunther facing McIntyre at the biggest event of the summer. Becky Lynch competed on Raw last night, but there was concern throughout the day that the match wouldn't happen. After some uncertainty throughout the day whether or not the match would occur, the match went ahead despite legitimate injury concerns. WWE had actually been advertising a match between Becky Lynch and Zoe Stark for last night's July 10 episode of Raw since last week, but several hours before the show, the match was removed from advertising and reports emerged that Lynch was actually injured. However, it wasn't too long until the match was being advertised once again, and it did go ahead as planned, with Stark getting the win thanks to interference from Trish Stratus. WRKD Wrestling and Fightful Select had both reported that Lynch was not cleared as of earlier on in the day due to injury, hence the match being removed from advertising, but then throughout the day she did manage to eventually get cleared, hence the match ended up taking place. Obviously the current plan is for Becky Lynch to face Trish Stratus at SummerSlam on August 5th, and that was continued through having the match on Raw last night. The Miz hit a big milestone last night. They got his big first win of 2023. The Miz faced off against Tommaso Ciampa in a no disqualification match on last night's Raw, and by picking up the victory, Miz marked a major milestone for himself in 2023. The Miz is now 1-13. In 2023 after defeating Tommaso Ciampa with what only can be described as a significant interference from Bronson Reed. While it may have been the Miz's first win of 2023, Bronson Reed had appeared mid-match to attack Miz's opponent Ciampa and hand him the victory. Reed went back up the ramp as Miz went for the pin over a down Ciampa. Kevin Patrick and Corey Graves on commentary surmised that Bronson was a hired gun for the Miz. When Reed was first brought back to WWE in December of 2022, he helped the Miz win a ladder match against Dexter Lumis, but the two haven't been affiliated since then. So certainly could we be seeing the Miz having another hired gun and another partner that you would assume at some point in the future will eventually turn on him. Logan Paul and Ricochet came face to face, and it looks like we are going to be getting a match between them at SummerSlam later on this summer. Logan Paul came face to face with Ricochet on Monday Night Raw. The heated promo battle took place on the July 10 episode of the Red Brand. After coming out first, Ricochet noted that every risk he takes is for the fans and the fans only. Ricochet went on to call Paul out, specifically for running his mouth about him on his Impulsive podcast. Paul then came out and called Ricochet a reckless amateur, specifically criticizing the human highlight reel for targeting him in the Money in the Bank ladder match. Ricochet then went on to note that he wanted to challenge Paul to a match, but that now he just wants to hurt him. The segment ended after Ricochet dove to the outside and landed on his feet right in front of Paul, who dismissed the spot by calling it a TikTok moment. Paul then tried to hit Ricochet with a punch, but the former Intercontinental Champion countered and sent Paul crashing to the floor with a sliced bread off the apron. Of course, it does look like, as I mentioned, the seeds have been firmly planted for a match at SummerSlam between the two, and certainly it's going to feature several social media spots, one would think. Finally, next week on Raw, we'll see Brock Lesnar return to WWE programming. Brock Lesnar will make his return to Monday Night Raw next week when Raw goes to Atlanta, Georgia, while there are also 3 matches on the card for next week's show as well. Chelsea Green and Sonya Deville have been steadily building momentum in recent weeks by any means necessary. 1 week ago, they ran the gauntlet. On Monday night, they used underhanded means to defeat Kaden Carter and Katana Chance in a final tune-up ahead of their Women's Tag Team Championship match against Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan. After interrupting Maxine Dupree's graduation ceremony, a Viking rules match between Alpha Academy and the Viking Raiders has also been confirmed. Additionally, a Money in the Bank rematch. Matt Riddle will be seeking a measure of revenge over Intercontinental Champion Gunther in a non-title match. While the rest of Imperium is barred from ringside, Riddle won't have Drew McIntyre in his corner either. And then there's Lesnar. Following Cody Rhodes' challenge on Raw, the Beast Incarnate is set to appear, presumably to accept the American Nightmare SummerSlam challenge. On Monday night's Raw, Rhodes delivered a passionate speech whereby he admitted he could not shake off Lesnar, but had to do so once and for all to advance his career to the next level. So seemingly we're going to get confirmation of this match next week, and maybe an indication of maybe why Lesnar attacked Rhodes in the first place, and also what gimmick match most likely the match will be at SummerSlam. But there you go, guys. Latest WWE news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe bottom right hand corner. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.